And today we did the last lesson of the unit and semester, and this lesson is actually all over your test. All over the constructed response. And one question on the illuminate, but we know like illuminate is usually around 10 questions. So even missing one, it's like, it's a decent amount of points. So make sure you really understand today's lesson, and that if you don't, you're asking questions. So a way to kind of reflect and see if you understood it. Can you make sense of a graph of a piecewise function in terms of a situation and sketch it when the rules are given? So do you think we mastered that? Can you, when given rules, sketch the graph of a piecewise function? And no. Yeah. Okay, because that literally is a skill on the constructed response. So I'm sure you can do that. Then can you make sense of the rules of a piecewise function when they're written in function notation and explain what they mean? So if you're asked like to define or to explain what the rule is, it would really be like a sentence per interval. A little bit tedious, but it's just a sentence per interval. When it's 0 to whatever ounces, 8 ounces, it costs 50 cents per ounce. When it's above 8 ounces up to 12 ounces, it costs $4. You're done. That's it. That's all you have to do. And then last one, what makes it a piecewise function? So what makes something a piecewise function? Oh. How do I know if something's a piecewise function? What makes it a piecewise function? Okay, so in like layman's terms, you can memorize that definition and put it on your test if you want. But basically, there's different rules for different inputs. All right, and usually it's expressed in intervals, the inputs. But there's different rules when the inputs are from here to here versus when they're from here to here. That's basically it. So if it's defined in pieces, another way to kind of phrase it that you remember, but that is what makes it a piecewise function. And of course, for each input, there's only one output. So that's the function part of it. Now you have a practice to practice this lesson, which I said is all over your test, so please do this one for sure. But then after that, you have study guides. Okay, and then tomorrow for math lab, you'll have additional time to work on your study guides, but I expect like by the end of that time that you have 80% or higher on both study guides. That will be like your math lab grade tomorrow, and that will be like your assessment math lab grade. Next week, we are doing a project that'll be your final exam for here. It's really kind of easy and fun, but it's going to take up all next week. All right, so we're going to be done with our practices and study guide by the end of math lab tomorrow. So any questions on anything? So this is first priority, and then all the study guides. And remember, we do have a small quiz in algebra tomorrow. Okay. All right, so number 6, unit 4, we have to complete the rule for g of x so that the graph represents it. And we have g of x, it says pretend this bracket goes all the way to the left side. Okay. Let's see. It's just a little wonky. So it should look like when we looked at the rules for piecewise functions. So it's supposed to resemble something like this. But because like for some reason Schoology makes those blanks really wide, you're just gonna kind of pay attention a little bit more. So for this first one, that -10 is an output.
So look at where the y's are -10. So somewhere between these two numbers. Let's see. So that one's already done for us, but as you can see, it's -15, including the -15, up to -10, not including it. So the rest kind of follow that format. So like this would be your input or output, what I highlighted. An input or output. It's an input. What letter does it use? X. So that's defining an input. So then what goes here must be the output when the X is within this interval. So find what line that would be. So on the X, find where the X is -10 and up to -8. This is what they're talking about right now. What is that Y value at this little increment? Do we know how to read a coordinate plane, guys? I don't know why this is so hard. I don't know why I'm getting no response. What axis goes up and down? The y-axis. So when I look at a certain part of the graph, like the part that my mouse is on, and I asked you, what's that y value right here? You got to look at the axis that goes up and down. What's that y value? So then you type that in here. This is where the X is from -10 to -8. That Y value is what you put for the output part. So for piecewise functions, I mean, they could really sort them however way they want, but usually you'll see the outputs on the left, the inputs on the right with like the intervals. Okay. So then the next thing that they give us, is this -6 an input or an output? It's an output because the input is over here with the X, right? So like piecewise functions have different rules for different parts of the domain. So this must be an output then. That means look on your y-axis where the y is -6. So like right here where my mouse is. And then we have where the interval ends. They gave us the -1. Where does this interval start? At -8. So that's what goes here. Okay, does that make more sense what you're doing for that one? Maybe. So you have a few more blanks. If you haven't tried them yet, try just typing them in. Maybe don't submit it yet. I'll still verify the answer with you. But if you haven't typed in the blanks for those last three, try it now. See, are they giving you an input or output? Fine, or that would be on the graph. So I'll reveal those answers to you in about a minute. So try seeing if you can identify it yourself. So for this one, they gave us the interval. So is that my input or output? No. What I highlighted is your input. They're asking you for the output when the input is here. Okay, so that means on my x's, I need to look from -1 to +1. Right, it looks like it's this little increment that they're talking about. What is this y value here at this increment? So then in that space, you're going to put 2. So that interval, the output is 2. Then right here, they're giving us, what is this for, an input or an output? So then that means on the y, you should look for where it's 4 on the y. And then they're asking you for the entire interval this time. And usually whatever number's on the left, they keep on the left. They usually do it from least to greatest. What number would you estimate is on the left of this line? Okay, I'd probably say the same, not right in the middle, right? So I would definitely say 1. And then where do you think it ends? So then 1, 10, and then also, if you want to like go back and verify, on the 1, it should be a closed circle. On the 10, it should be open. So yeah, that checks out. So then I'm gonna see if the key's right, but I'm pretty confident in my answers. And yeah, that's right. So that's what you're doing. You were completing the rules for that one. Number 4. All right, so on this one, what are the values of the following? Type undefined if you cannot determine it from the graph. So they're all in function notation. When they're giving you a value inside parentheses, is that an input or an output? They're giving you inputs because, like, for example, that 1 is replacing what would usually be an X. So yeah. If my input is 1, gotta find where that is on my X. So right here. What's my output here? Is it 2 or 4? 4, because that's where the solid mark is. And then -12, so find -12 on your x-axis. Go down to where it touches on the line. What y value is that, you think? -10. And then g of 15, so find where the x is 15. Can I see that on this graph? So then if you reread the instructions, it says type undefined if you cannot determine from the graph. And then a side note, just because I've been looking at your test a lot lately, making the retake and all that stuff, be able to, like, I know you can tell me what the outputs are for the UV, but if I gave you something like this, g of -12 minus g of 1, you have to be able to calculate stuff like that too. Okay, but it's easy. Like, what did we say g of -12 was? Then you replace that part with -10. What did we say g of 1 was? And you replace that part with 4 with -10 minus 4. No. -14. But feel free to check that with the calculator. This is more test prep than it is for this problem. So I'm just saying, like, if you see stuff like that, it's just one extra step. You still identify your inputs, outputs, and then do the math that they say. All right, no last minute questions? Okay, so make sure, try to submit 80% or higher. If you didn't do that in here, if you need more attempts, you could always email me.